What's up, everybody, and welcome once again to the Links and Locks Best Bets podcast. I'm Jason Sobel from the Action Network. He is Ben Everill from the PGA Tour. As we do every single week here on the pod, we're going to play 18 holes, making 18 bets going back and forth. A little match play for the final full field event of the 2022 calendar year on the PGA Tour, the RSM Classic. Before we get there, Benny, I just want to review a little bit from this past weekend. Tony Finau cruises to a 4-shot victory that probably could have been an 8-shot victory if he really wanted it to. I am very, very, very bullish on Tony Finau for 2023 in some big time events now that he has seemingly gotten over that learning curve and figured out how to win on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, look, it was just another epic performance by one player in the field. We had obviously Russell Henley do the same at Mayakoba, sort of gapped the rest, and Tony Finau he just refused to let anyone else have a sniff, didn't he? In this tournament there in Houston, and he for so long we said he couldn't. He was one of the players that might not be able to get it done in the clutch or power through to victories. And what is it now? 3 in his last 7. I mean, this guy is clearly. He's over that little bit of the hump. Look, they're not majors. They're not the players. They're not like the designated events that we might see in the new year. But you know what? They're victories. And when it comes to any sort of experience in that sort of arena, it can only help going forward. So yeah, look, I expect we might see Tony Finau's name up inside the top 5 of some massive events in 2023.
Yeah, I am usually not a big time futures better when it comes to golf, Benny, just because you never know. A guy falls out of
Yeah.
form, a guy isn't playing his best golf, maybe has an injury, whatever it might be. But Tony Finau for 25 to 1 at the Masters 5 months from now. Look, I could see him getting a little bit shorter than that. I've said here on the pod that like Rory McIlroy right now, there's no point in getting a futures bet on him because I don't think he's getting that much shorter between now and the time we get to Masters week. Tony Finau at 25 to 1, I could see him being 15 to 1, 18 to 1 by the time April rolls around, 35 to 1 for the US Open. LACC, your adopted hometown of Los
Yeah.
Angeles, next June. Remember, he almost won in LA at Riviera last year, got pipped in a playoff by Max Homa. Other than Matt Fitzpatrick on a shorter golf course at the country club this year, look at the last 6 players or so that have won U.S. Opens. Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Gary Woodland, Bryson DeChambeau. What do they all have in common? Big, strong dudes that can muscle it out of the rough. Who's bigger and stronger than Tony Finau at 35 to 1? Looking ahead to next June. I know it's a long way away. I know we're trying to bankroll everything for football season, everything else we got going on. Tony Finau, looking ahead to next year's U.S. Open, could be a very smart play.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And I think I think BetMGM also has him at what 2,800 for the Players Championship. If you want to look further ahead, and I know that BetMGM will put up, and most weeks actually have a FedEx Cup market, and Finau's sort of getting some points early there with that 500. So there's a top list, obviously, with your Rorys, your JTs, Scheffler, etc., that are at the top of that board. But there's definitely some value as you go further down, and Finau's in that sort of middle range for the season long effort as well. That will provide some value against those likes of Rahm, Cantlay, etc. So definitely have a look around and look at that value that you might still be able to get, as you said, because he looks like he could have a massive 23.
Yeah, all right. Let's move ahead to the RSM Classic at Sea Island. They played 2 golf courses over the first 2 days, the Seaside and the Plantation. Little strange, we'll get into it, especially for first round leader bets. The Seaside is a par 70, the Plantation's a par 72. The weekend rounds are all played on the Seaside, but for first round leader bets, it gets a little sort of tricky trying to figure out. There's basically going to be 2 different boards, and one player could be 9 under at one golf course and be 2 better than a player who's 9 under on the other golf course. And so, like I said, it gets a little strange, but we'll get into it in just a second as we play our 18 holes. As a reminder, the Links and Locks podcast is proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION, ACTION, to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 free. All right, Benny, playing 18 holes. I don't know if we're playing the seaside or the plantation, but we are on the tee. You may swing away.
Either one, I'm probably going to swing a few out of bounds left, as you know, generally speaking, with my game. But look, I'll try to keep you in play with the first pick. I'm going to go with my first outright pick, as I always do on the first hole. I'm going to go with a former champion, an international player from a little north of most of our listeners there in Canada. But Mackenzie Hughes is pretty decent value, around 50 to 1, I believe, where he at a place where he won in 2016. 6 weeks since he won at Sanderson Farms to start his a big season this year. Top 25s in his last 4. He was also second last year here at RSM. So I really like the value that you can get at Mackenzie Hughes, around 50 to 1 in most books.
I expect him to be a very popular play this week. It's almost one of those, like, it's too easy. He's won here in the past, and he's playing really good golf right now at 50 to 1. I think he'll be very popular. I'll start out the second hole with a long shot outright, where I thought this guy would be about half the price that he is, especially coming off a title contention in his most recent start. Patton Kizzire got into the penultimate pairing on Sunday afternoon in the final round of the Worldwide Technology Championship at Mayakoba. Didn't have his best stuff on Sunday, finished in a share of 10th place, but I thought he'd be right around 75 to 1. The odds came out and he was 150 to 1. This is a guy who, like so many of the guys we target at Sea Island, it's a guy that went to an SEC school, that likes putting on Bermuda, that has spent many, many days and nights at Sea Island. I believe he's a Sea Island guy. If he doesn't live there, he lives not too far away. 150 to 1. Again, it's just, it's not a, hey, put everything on Desire outright this week. I'll have a few more outrights as we move on, but that's just a big number for an outright play for me.
Oh, mate, well, then I'll shuffle the decks here, because my long shots for later. He was one of the two, but I'll go the third hole. Patton Kizzire said, there's 2 guys, again, that have got some history in the area and or at the event, that I just saw them number and thought, if you're going to throw a sneaky 1 or 2 units somewhere to try to cash big, that popped out and sort of leaped at me. And now look, Kizzire's the one that I had there at 150, and I had a guy at 200. Now, granted, this one I'm going to mention, terrible form currently. Hasn't had a top 10 on tour since the Valspar in March, but a former winner not that long ago, Robert Streb. The Strebber, like, this is the type of course, because as I said, the Sea Island Mafia, they call them, the guys that were there a lot. They just pop up and play well. You know, it's almost like they're hitting around with their mates or whatever else. It's definitely a spot where horses for courses comes into effect, and you know, I don't think you can discount any of the sort of previous history for players here. You know, it's not a bomber's course. You got to have your approach game, your accuracy, and you got to putt the dots off it for a couple of days, right? At least 3 or 4 days. You're going to have to really putt the ball. And look, Strebber's in terrible form, but at 200 to 1 for a unit or two, a guy that could easily, you know, contend, finish in the top 10, and then not be seen again for 6 months. I liked it.
2-time winner of this event. Actually, Michael Collins gave me a good little trivia question when we were doing our SiriusXM PGA Tour radio show earlier today on Monday afternoon. And among the top 3 in the career money list for this event is Kevin Kisner, who has a win back in 2016, I believe, and has played so well on so many different occasions. Webb Simpson, who seemingly plays well here every single year. He's got 5 top 10s and 10 starts. And the third man of that top 3 is indeed Robert Streb, who's won here twice. Nothing else better than 25th. But when you're playing outrights and you're playing long shots, I'll take the all or nothing. I'll take the high ceiling, low floor, as opposed to the guy who finished in the top 10 every single week. So I think that's a pretty smart play by you. Let's get to the 4th hole. I'm going to have, as I mentioned, a lot of long shots. We haven't quite seen long shot season happen here in the fall so far, Benny. There have been 8 events. 7 of the winners, everyone except for Mackenzie Hughes, has been 35 to 1 or shorter. That could change this week, because in the last 6 years at the RSM Classic, nobody has won from shorter than 40 to 1, and 3 of the 6 winners have been 150 to 1 or bigger. So I mentioned Patton Kizzire, you mentioned Robert Streb. That said, I do want to get a few plays that are a little bit more conservative, and so I'm going to start here with a pair of top 5 plays, 2 guys that I've already made a few DFS lineups, and they are going to be in pretty much all of my DFS lineups, or at least most of them. Denny McCarthy, Matthew Neesmith, two guys who are tailor-made for these two golf courses, shorter courses, Bermuda greens, get it on the green, roll it into the hole. I've got them for top fives at right around plus 700, plus 750 for each guy.
Yeah, mate. Again, I love your thinking. I did forget to mention that about the long shots getting up here and being sort of the trend, which goes against, as you mentioned, the trend of the tour at the moment. You know what? I'll talk about Neesmith now while I can as well, because I have him down for a potential first round leader play. And as you mentioned earlier, we have to keep in mind, I don't know which course he's playing on yet first, and make sure that if you are going to get on, you're on a place where either they separate the two courses, otherwise you could find yourself on a guy on the harder course and be in trouble. But yeah, look, he's got some good momentum. Matt Neesmith, I'm looking for somewhere to put him. So I could sprinkle across. Top 5 is definitely something you could look at. I mean, he's been inside the top 30, I think 3 times, which makes him a sort of a great mid-tier player across the board. So he was slated in my book here for first round leader, but I'm not opposed to putting him in, win top 5, top 10, top 20 players as well. It's a good bet, mate. I'm going to back you in on that.
Yeah, you mentioned first round leader plays. So last year, just to sort of unravel this thing a little bit, Sebastian Munoz was the first round leader on the Seaside course. He shot a 10 under 60. You got to go low. You can't pick a guy that's going to shoot mid 60s and expect to cash a ticket with this one. That said, Zach Johnson shot a 9 under 61. He was one shot back. But the players on the Plantation course, a par 72, I believe it was Scott Stallings and Mackenzie Hughes, shot 9 under 63. They led from the Plantation course. I would assume, like you said, Benny, most books will have 2 different odds boards for first round leader. Again, we are recording on Monday night. Tee times come out on Tuesday, so we're flying blind a little bit here. But for the 6th hole, I will go with one of my first round leader plays, whichever course he winds up on. Will Gordon has been very good in his return to the PGA Tour so far, and especially good on Thursdays. He has a scoring average of 66.5 on Thursdays in 6 starts. Not like he's just made 2 starts. He's made 6 starts. A few weeks ago, started with a 62 at Mayakoba. I believe he had the first round lead there. I think he can certainly do it again. Look, I like him for all 4 rounds. I think the better investment this week is for a first round leader play on Will Gordon.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, look, Will's been sort of threatening, hasn't he? He's one of those guys that you could see catch a win sometime in the next sort of 3-4 months, and this no doubt could be it. I'll give you a top 5 that was a guy that sort of I was looking at as the long shots and also as outrights. Aaron Rai. Now, look, Aaron Rai for top 5 is about 1,100, so pretty decent value there. He was 16th last year in his debut as a just crisp ball striking genius about a year ago. He was playing, and then last week in Houston, I think he was 7th or roundabout there, and he led the field in strokes gained around the green. Now, both approach and around the green have statistically been very important at this event. Of course, as I said earlier, you've also got a putt pretty decent, but just sort of trending in the right direction that I feel like he could be one that comes out of nowhere again in that sort of sprinkle across the long shot top 5, top 10s for the value. Aaron Rai also has played well in the past at the DP World Tour. For those who don't know him, played pretty decent in Vegas when I was watching him live a couple of weeks back. So I like the look of Aaron Rai.
8th hole, I'm going to go to a guy that I've been mentioning a lot recently. I really like his game. He's 8th on the PGA Tour in strokes gained on approach shots, and that is Nick Hardy. Nick Hardy playing some nice golf. He's already got 1 top 10 finish. I'm going to play him for a top 10 here. He's got 2 other top 25s in his last 4 starts, and so he's running hot. For him, it's all about the putter. If the putter can get going, he is going to score, and he's going to be up there on the leaderboard. I like playing him for a top 10. This guy, Benny, he's 175 in the official World Golf ranking. I would be shocked if by the end of the season he isn't half that number. I mean, he should be at least in the top 80 or 90, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the top 50 before too long. So Nick Hardy, this is a short-term play for a top 10 this week, but long-term, keep an eye on this kid. He's got a lot of game, and he's going to have a very good season.
Love it, mate. Love it. The old hard stuff. All right, let me go to my bias and go a top 40 play with a bit of down under spirit added to it. Saw the number plus 350 for Aaron Baddeley to be in the top 40. Aaron Baddeley is usually a genius with the putter. Has many a year been the best putter on tour before obviously falling into sort of the Monday qualifier past champion status of his career, where he needs to get in most weeks. This week he gets in without having to go through any sort of qualification. He showed some promise of late. Now look, his best result at RSM over the years is 40th, so it's not like he's a genius on these two courses. I have to be honest, in the last 5 years he played there, he missed 3 cuts. But just having had a little chat with him recently, just having seen how at ease he is as a human, even though he's got 700 kids running around, Aaron Baddeley, I think, can be a person that you can look at in that top 40 market with good value. I mean, how often do you get 350 for a 4-time winner on the tour? Or, it's hard to get that.
Tell you what, you Australians can pump them out. Between J-Day and Bads, I mean, that's a lot of young kids running around all the time. Tough to get in your practice hours for that. But by the way, I love Bads. Great dude. I hadn't seen him in a while. He popped up on my TV screen a few weeks ago, I think in Bermuda. They're just showing him putting. I'm like, what the? Like, he looks like he's inherited the body of my man, Andre Gonzalez. I mean, he's got the long flowing hair. He's maybe put on a couple of pounds, but he looks like he just looks bigger. I mean, it's just, and that's not necessarily, that's not even like it's all, like he's, I'm not saying he's overweight or he just looks like a bigger dude. Like he's got muscle, he's got weight to him, he's got hair. He just looks different.
You're giving him the Jesus dad bod. I'm going to tell him. He's a good dude, Bads. And yeah, like I wish him well. You're right. Look, I think it's 6 or 7 kids now. Unbelievable. Really cool. Mrs. Obviously, Rochelle, his wife, is pretty stout to look after that sort of a tribe. But she's given him the all clear this fall to get out and get amongst it. And I know he really wants to make this week count, is what I'm saying. So look, I just think 350 for a top 40.
Yeah,
for a guy who usually can get hot with the putter. I liked it.
I've got a top 40 play at plus 350 as well. I'll give that to you in just a second. By the way, the Jesus dad bod, tell him I said more Jesus than dad. It's just 51-49. I don't know how we split that up.
Will do.
Before we get to the back nine, as a reminder, the Links and Locks podcast proudly presented by Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION, ACTION, to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey and Colorado. Bet $1 on any game, get $200 for free. We get to the 10th tee. I am on the tee, and as you mentioned, Aaron Baddeley for a top 40 at plus 350. I'm going to take another guy of just about the same era, at least. I don't know if they're the same age exactly, but Jonathan Bird, who's still got some game. You go back and look at the results, and like, he can still play. He doesn't get into a whole lot of events, and so he's not getting a whole lot of reps right now, but the history is pretty solid at Sea Island. Nothing special. He hasn't won. He hasn't really contended, but, a handful of really good, consistent events. On any given week, this is a guy who can go out there and finish, like I said, top 40. I mean, you don't need much. You only need to beat about a third of the field this week, and so he's a guy that I certainly think can do it. Are there better plays? Are there more conservative, cautious plays for a top 40? Absolutely. I can sit here and rattle off a bunch of guys that are minus 120 to hit a top 40 and cash a ticket for you if that's what you're looking to do. Benny and I have both given you bigger number plays, guys from the bottom of the board. So he's got Baddeley. I like Bird. Why don't you just parlay them together? Have them both finish T37 this week and cash a big ticket.
Yeah, and then take us out for a hamburger or something. That'd be good. All right, mate.
By the way, I lost dinner to dinner bet to Collins on our show, and I said afterwards I hadn't thought about that. Do I have to go to dinner with you? Can I just like DoorDash it and send it to your house? I don't want to eat with you.
That's the real loss. Yeah, the real loss is you had to go out with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to throw you a top 20. Just a guy I like that's looks to be trending towards potentially making his name a little bit more obvious on those PGA Tour leaderboards. He was fourth last week behind dominant Finau in Alex Smalley. He also was T11 in Bermuda a couple of weeks before that. He's 5 for 6 making the cut this season. In 3, I think, top 25s now. I just feel like he is trending. I hate using that word sometimes, but trending in the right direction. Alex Smalley. There was a little bit of value there, plus 275 for a top 20. So yeah, just one I'm keeping an eye on coming up in the early part of next year as well, Alex.
Very underrated rookie season. We saw so many guys from Cameron Young, of course, Davis Riley, Sahith Theegala, Mito Pereira. I'm sure I'm missing a few in there as well. And so Alex Smalley had a really nice rookie campaign this past season and sort of went under the radar just because of all these other young guys that are playing really well. So I like that. I am going with, in the 12th hole, a top 20 that's the ultimate chalky value narrative play. I mean, you want to take a walk down Narrative Street? How about this one? Davis Thompson's dad, Todd, is the tournament director of the RSM Classic. I mean, how does it get any better than that? I had him on the radio show, I don't know, at some point earlier this year, and I asked him how many times he's played the Sea Island courses, and he just laughed. He goes, well, I like all like yes, like as many times as you can count. He's like, I don't know how many times. Like, how many times have you taken breaths in the last 2 days? I played them all the time, and so Davis Thompson's playing some really good golf on the PGA Tour in his rookie season right now. Top 20 in a place that he knows as well as anybody else, where he's going to have a ton of support. Plus 350, decent number. Like I said, I would be surprised. You mentioned Mackenzie Hughes off the top, and I said, yeah, it's going to be a really popular one. I would be surprised if by the end of the week, by the time we get to Thursday morning, there aren't an absolute ton of people on Davis Thompson. I could see him being one of the more highly owned players in DFS this week as well. And you're showing me the card. You've got something written there, Benny. What you got?
Yeah, well, I have Davis Thompson down as one of my top 10 players at double the odds you just mentioned. Same thing. I was trying to get the little bit extra squeeze out of the juice, the lemon there. I've got down Thompson as the sort of larger number if you want to go for a top 10, and my smaller number is Seamus Power at plus 350 for a top 10. Look, he's on another surge, of course. He's had the victory and he was T3 in Mexico. He leads the FedEx Cup at the moment. I think he's going to keep that form going in terms of playing well. I think he can potentially contend for the win. He was fourth here a year ago. I just don't see any reason why he'll come off the gas. So I think Seamus Power is someone you can't sort of ignore. Just look, I'm not going to mention Tony Finau in any of my bets, just so that you guys know that. But I don't think he can win. Can't win. Sorry, the number is low. And as you guys know, I usually wait for those early favourites to fall back, potentially after a shootout in the first round or something like that. So that doesn't mean I don't think Tony Finau can win this thing. Clearly, he's in great form, but I think that form will carry on for Seamus Power. So Power and Thompson were my two looks in for the top 10 market this week.
Good to the 14th hole. Speaking of Finau, look, nothing against Tony, nothing against Russell Henley, who won 2 weeks ago. Those were snoozers. They played too well. They lapped the field, and by the time they got to the back nine on Sunday afternoon, the entire tournament was devoid of any drama or entertainment because we knew the conclusion before it was even over. And so I'm going with a little karma play here. I usually don't like these kind of props, Benny, but I feel like I feel like the golfing public in general is due for a good one. 3-man playoff coming on the heels of a couple of 4-shot wins. 3-man playoff, 11-1 this week. Why not? Look, I don't know. There's no necessarily data or analytics to figure out one of these. It's just sort of law of averages, I guess, which isn't really a thing, but I don't know. We've seen 2 guys win going away the last 2 weeks. I don't see it happening for a third time. So instead, let's play the complete opposite of that and have a few different guys going against each other in a playoff come Sunday afternoon.
All right, I love it. I love the contrarian view. So I'm going to throw one up then. I don't usually like to fade guys, etc., in matchups, but I'm looking for something. One of the guys you said we'll see a lot of Mackenzie Hughes, I believe. I think Thompson will come in as well. One guy that I know will be popular here because of his past form. There is the man you sort of mentioned before in Kevin Kisner. Now, I'm going to potentially move him the other way this week, and I'll tell you why. I hear that he's just made a recent coach change from his long-term John Tillery friend to Justin Parsons, who
Wow.
is there at Sea Island. A great guy, Justin Parsons. I hear it was amicable, the potential split between him and his long-term coach. However, I'm not sure that players who make those changes can just jump in that same week and do great. So while I expect he'll be a very popular play because of his connections to Sea Island, there's a chance that Kiz is just, feeling things out this week as he makes that switch to change things up and try to get his game back to its absolute best. So, a little bit of news that I'm hearing. I haven't got it directly from Kisner's mouth yet. So please, if I turn out to be a moron in 2 days' time, that could be the case. But look, I'm pretty good authority that there's a little bit of a change there going, and a completely amicable one, by the way. Long-term friends, Kisner and John Tillery. So nothing of untoward of that matter, but just I think it might be a chance to essentially get other guys matched up against Kiz. You might get some value.
Very, very interesting. That's one that we're going to keep an eye on. But interesting news there that I agree with you. I'm not playing a guy, whether it's Kevin Kisner, whether it's anybody else, who's just split from a longtime coach and is maybe working on a couple of new things right away. Maybe long term, you like looking at them for 3, 4, 5 months down the road. Absolutely not right away, though. Okay, getting to the 16th hole. And this is a week where, like I said, we've seen some long shots win here at the RSM Classic over the years. Last 6 editions of this event, nobody shorter than 40-1 has won here. And so I'm gonna dot the card up a little bit this week, and 2 other outright plays. And if you want to play them for top 5s, top 10s, I can see that as well. But just a couple other guys that I will have at some part on some part of the card. Davis Riley, whose odds over the last handful of months have jumped all over the place. He was way too short in some really good fields. Then he was way too long in some inferior fields. Now he's back to, it's an okay field, and he's playing decent, and the odds are probably about where they should be. He's right around 50-1 in the marketplace. Like I said, coming off a couple of weeks where he's starting to show some form. Didn't seriously contend, but he's showing that form. Wouldn't surprise anybody if Davis Riley wins on this type of track. And then the second guy, look, if you like Sepp Straka, and you know a little bit about Sepp, which is, he's got that European flag next to his name, but man, he's got a Southern accent and he plays really well on Bermuda greens. Steven Jaeger is sort of cut from the same cloth. Steven Jaeger's a guy that has that German flag next to him, but he grew up in the South and he's played a million different courses with Bermuda greens. This should fit him as well. He's 80-1 this week. And like I said, just sprinkle those guys around a little bit.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I can see it. All right, we've come to that point where I've got to give you my outright, my top pick on the top of the board, the 17th hole. I'm going to rattle off a couple of recent finishes for this person. T8, T11, T21, and T16, 14 rounds under 70 in this time. It was T12 2 years ago at the RSM. Didn't cash for me last week. I'm going back to the down under board. Jason Day. I'm going to go one more time. Jason Day at about 22-25-1, depending on where you look. I think that Jason is trending again, like I mentioned last week. I think he can finally put it together at some point. Will he be a little bit gassed? Possibly. He could be a little bit tired. He doesn't usually play this much golf all in a row, but I'm a little biased. And it was his birthday last week, and he had a lot going on. He still played well. He tells me he's going to give it his all and then take some obvious time off after that. So I'm going to give him one more crack while we can get him at half decent odds. Another guy, though, definitely to look at post round 1. And here's the biggest reason that you should lock him in. I've picked him in the PGA fantasy game. We get 3 times we get to pick him each section. I'm out of starts. So I'm going to want to start him. I can't. So he'll now go on and win. So that's it from the horse's mouth. Look, I do also like, I haven't mentioned him at all in here. I think, there's some guys at the top of the board or near the top, like Tom Hoagie, you should look at. Mentioned a few others, but I'm going to go all in on my Aussie mate, Jason Day.
Benny, there's a good lesson in here for the listeners. And how many times have you guys all done it? We all have, where you bet a player and you put an outright on him, and he doesn't win. He plays pretty well, doesn't seriously contend. And the next week you go, all right, let's move on to some other guys. And you play some other guys just because I don't know why. Because, well, I don't know. I just wanted to switch it up and differentiate. The betting tickets and certainly the players don't know who you're putting your money on. If you like a guy one week, there's probably a good reason to like him for a few weeks in a row. And so that's something that I've learned the hard way over the years where you try to jump around and go, okay, look, this isn't Little League. This isn't, well, everyone gets a chance to be on the betting card at some point. So we've already used you. Now we're going to move on to you. Hey, if you like a guy, don't feel bad about, I backed him last week. I'm going to back him this week, and I'm going to back him next week as well, because I think at some point he is ready to pop. Tony Finau was a great example. I was not on him last week.
Yep.
I was on him the week before at Mayakoba. And so I should
Yep.
have seen one start under your belt, and then you're ready to go. I missed on that last week. But we get to the 18th hole, and a guy that I was on a little bit during the summer. He had maybe the best season of his career without a victory. He's won since back in 2013, but he's got 3 career victories, made the Tour Championship this past season for the first time. Scott Stallings playing some of the best golf of his career. You can find him anywhere from 50-1 to 65-1 in the marketplace. So shop around a little bit on Stallings. He's a guy that had a share of the first round lead on the Plantation course last year, opened with a 63. He's got some decent results, nothing to write home about at this venue, but a guy that's playing, like I said, the best golf of his career, and certainly wouldn't surprise anyone if he put it all together and ended 2022 with his 4th career victory. It's quite frankly been way too long since Stallings' last win.
Yeah, mate. Look, I think I mentioned a couple of weeks back, or even a couple of months back, when we were talking about him before, that he was one of those guys I just refused to back, even though he was showing that he was doing the right things. In fact, Rob Bolton, our guru at the tour, was very gung-ho and is gung-ho, and Scott Stallings making runs. And here I am saying, nah, he's got nothing. Anyway, that cost me a Dodgers cap. I had to send to Rob Bolton that he would make the playoffs and make the tour, make it through. Yeah, so I have to tip my hat there and say that was one guy that, for whatever reason, and by the way, Finau's been one of those in the past where I've been one of the guys that go, nah. And then he's just burned me the last 7 times he's played. So sometimes you've got to get rid of your little mini biases against guys and just look at the pure numbers. And I think you're onto a potential winner right there.
Yeah, so hope so. Good luck to everybody out there. We'll be back. I don't know if Benny knows this yet, but in a few weeks, next month, for the Hero World Challenge, we're going to do our final pod of the year for the Hero, the short field event, Tiger Woods playing in the Bahamas. So we'll be back for that one. We appreciate everyone's support throughout the entire year. As always, you can listen to the Links and Locks Best Bets podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast. Download, subscribe, rate, and listen every week during the golf year. For Ben Everill, I'm Jason Sobel. Good luck with all your bets for this week's RSM Classic. Here's hoping you hit the green.